Has Rishi Sunak's promises to the UK citizens become a reality, or remain a mere mirage? This question floats in the air as we examine the promises made by the British Prime Minister and their manifestation in the real world. When Rishi Sunak took the mantle of Chancellor of the Exchequer, the air was thick with promises. Promises to strengthen the economy, to lighten the tax burden, to invigorate public services. These were not just words, but commitments to the citizens of the United Kingdom, commitments that held the potential to shape the future of the nation. The economy, the backbone of any country, was a key area of focus for Sunak. He vowed to bolster it, to create a robust and resilient economic structure that could weather any storm. Yet, the current state of affairs tells a different story. The economy, rather than standing mighty and unyielding, seems to be staggering under the weight of unforeseen challenges. The promise of economic fortitude seems to waver in the face of reality. Then there were the assurances about taxes, a major concern for citizens nationwide. Sunak promised a fair and just taxation system that would not overburden the common man. However, the reality is grim. The tax burden seems heavier than ever, with citizens feeling the pinch of financial strain. The promise of a lighter tax load is yet to materialize, casting a shadow of doubt over Sunak's commitment. And what about public services? Sunak's promises to revitalize and strengthen them echoed loud and clear. Yet these vital lifelines of society appear to be in distress, struggling to meet the needs of the citizens they serve. The gap between the promise of robust public services and their current state is hard to ignore. As we delve deeper, we find that the gap between promises and reality is wider than one might initially think. The promises made by Rishi Sunak were like beacons of hope for the citizens of the United Kingdom. But as we navigate the murky waters of reality, we find these beacons flickering, their light dimmed by the harsh winds of unfulfilled promises. The economy, a critical aspect of any nation. But how has Sunak's policies impacted the British economy? Let's take a closer look. Sunak's leadership has seen significant shifts in key economic indicators, such as the gross domestic product growth, the unemployment rate, and the inflation rate. These are important barometers that measure the health of an economy, and under Sunak, their changes have been stark. Sunak promised robust economic growth, but what have we seen instead? The GDP growth rate has been consistently underwhelming. Despite promises of a robust recovery, the economy has been sluggishly trudging along, with growth rates that have barely kept pace with inflation. This is a far cry from the economic dynamism that was promised. Next, let's talk about unemployment. Sunak vowed to keep the job market buoyant, but the unemployment rate has been on a steady rise. More people are out of work now than before Sunak took office. This is not just a number. Each percentage point represents thousands of individuals, families who are struggling to make ends meet. And then there's inflation. Sunak promised to keep prices stable, but we've seen the inflation rate creeping up. The cost of living has been steadily rising, with prices for basic goods and services going up. This increased cost of living, combined with stagnant wages and rising unemployment, is squeezing the British public. What's more, these aren't just dry economic statistics. They have real, tangible impacts on everyday life. They affect how much money you have in your pocket, whether you can afford to buy a house, whether you can put food on the table for your family. Clearly, the economy is feeling the brunt of these unfulfilled promises. Sunak's policies have not delivered the economic stability and growth that were pledged. Instead, they have left the British economy teetering on the brink, with ordinary citizens bearing the brunt of these economic missteps. We were promised prosperity, but instead, we find ourselves grappling with economic uncertainty, taxation, an inevitable part of life. But has Sunak's tax policy been fair to all citizens? Let's turn our attention to the promises made by our Prime Minister. Sunak pledged a tax system that would be equitable, a system where everyone pays their fair share. But what's the reality? Take a look at the current tax rates and structures. On the surface, they may seem balanced, but delve deeper and you'll see a different story unfold. The wealthiest are paying less, while the middle and lower income groups are shouldering more of the burden. Remember the promise of no increases in income tax, national insurance, or VAT? Well, the reality is starkly different. National insurance contributions have risen, hitting the average worker hard. And let's not forget the sneaky freeze on income tax thresholds, effectively a stealth tax, pushing more people into higher tax bands. And what about corporation tax? Sunak promised to keep it competitive. But it's set to rise, leaving small businesses to bear the brunt. Meanwhile, large corporations find loopholes to minimize their contributions. The impact of these discrepancies is real. It's the ordinary citizen, the small business owner, the average worker who's feeling the pinch. So we must ask ourselves, is this the equitable tax system Sunak promised? Or is it a system that favors the wealthy at the expense of the many? It appears that the tax burden has not been evenly distributed, contrary to Sunak's initial promises. Public services, the backbone of a nation. But are they thriving or surviving under Sunak's watch? Take a moment to reflect on the state of our healthcare, our education system, our security services. These sectors, these lifelines of our society, are they flourishing under the leadership of Rishi Sunak? Let's delve deeper. A promise was made to uplift the NHS, to provide it with the resources it desperately needed. Yet hospitals are still overcrowded, staff are overworked, and waiting times are increasing. The promise of a well-funded, efficient healthcare system seems far from reality. Then comes education, a pledge to invest in our children's future, to equip our schools with the best tools for learning. But classrooms are still overcrowded, teachers are stretched thin, and educational resources remain scarce. The vision of an enriched, well-resourced educational system seems a distant dream. Let's not forget our security services, a vow to keep our streets safe, our homes secure. But crime rates are on the rise. Police forces are stretched and citizens are feeling less secure. The promise of a safe, secure nation seems a far cry from the reality. It's evident that public services are under strain, far from the flourishing picture painted by Sunak's promises. As we move forward, we must question if the future under Sunak's leadership will deliver on the promised prosperity or continue to strain the very backbone of our society.